The prairies. It's been the backdrop of the Saskatchewanderer travels the past 10 years, and a familiar sight for all of us who live here. This is the land of living skies, but also living land, as a large portion of Saskatchewan's land is used to feed us. But with the recent pandemic, there's been some questions raised about the reliability and the safety of our food supply. To get some answers, I spoke with Clinton Monchuk. He's a grain and egg farmer from Lanigan and also the executive director of Farm and Food Care Saskatchewan.
I think we always have to be positive and look at the glass half full, and I think we can see certain short-term shortages. You can see sometimes you go to the grocery store and there's no milk or no eggs, and it's just because of the short-term purchasing habits of consumers. There are some changes that will take some time to make sure the supply chain can adapt to it. I'm hopeful at this point. I know I've talked a lot to different processing companies that have indicated they do have contingency plans in place in the event one or two get sick, as well as complete cleaning and disinfecting protocol.
The reality is, with agriculture and food production in the province, sanitation is already a top priority. Producers across the country must adhere to Canadian Food Inspection Agency guidelines, pandemic or not.
You know, in terms of our own farm, everything from now making sure in our tractors and our trucks that we have Clorox wipes to wipe down steering wheels and the gear shifters and stuff like that. Health Canada and the CFIA have made it very clear that there's no evidence that indicates that this can be contracted through food. Now, that being said as well, the protocols in place to make sure everything are cleaned, sanitized, wiped down with the whole supply chain is top priority right now. And I even think in our own barn, our protocols were already in place to make sure biosecurity and food safety were at top of the list. And this is, again, just another layer to make sure we're doing our part by washing our hands when we go into the barn, and when we leave the barn, we're changing our clothes, we're washing everything down, we're making sure that we're taking as many precautions as possible. I think you are seeing a lot stronger pride in what we have here in Canada and a better appreciation for not only the farmers but the entire supply chain right to the grocery retailers that really, when you look at it, are also on the front lines. And every time I see them, I obviously want to give them hugs, but I can't give them hugs. So I do appreciate that they're making sure that Canadians are fed here in this country.
It was clear that yes, there's been changes farmers have had to make very fast. But high-pressure situations are part of the job when it comes to farming. So knowing the added stress farmers have been under, I wanted to know how he and other farming families were holding up.
The possibility of a crop failure, we can have a crop failure this year. So if you think of the level of stress that usually exists with seeding, which is somewhere around here, and then you have COVID to bring it up a little bit, and then you have some farmers that still have to take their combines out and get that crop off the field that they couldn't get off last fall. It's going to be a fairly stressful situation, and I've already seen on different Twitter feeds or Facebook feeds just the call to a lot of farmers to make sure that they realize the mental health situation is a real situation, and organizations like Do More Agriculture or the Farm Stress Line are there to make sure that you can have those conversations and walk through some of those difficulties right now.
And there is a silver lining. Canadians are now more curious than ever about where their food comes from, and it's something Clinton is happy to see.
I think it's given Canadians a newfound interest in finding out where their food comes from. And I think that's great. I really do. And I hope more Canadians take the opportunity now to actually look at some of the resources and understand what farmers and ranchers are doing in this country. It's unfortunate the situation we're in, but hopefully there's lights at the end of the tunnel, and we can get out of this together as Canadians, and I'm looking forward to those days too.
On that note, does it annoy you seeing everyone trying to bake bread now for the first time?
No, it doesn't. You know what? And I hope everybody decides if they have the ability to plant a garden this year. There's a better understanding. I speak to a lot of children, and there's a better understanding when you have people who have gardens and have to pull potato bugs or weeds out of their garden, for them to understand, well, okay, that's your garden, which is 10 by 10 in your backyard. and I have 3,700 football fields of crops. So you understand now why I would need different things like herbicides or insecticides to make sure that I can actually grow a crop that not only feeds Canadians but feeds the world. And I love it when people take an interest in growing their own food, because it does give you a deeper appreciation for how it is actually produced.
Just know that farmers are people too, and they are truly doing their best as essential workers to ensure biosecurity and sustaining our food supply as normally as possible.
I always say, and sometimes it's kind of an emotional job, right? The biggest factor is obviously the weather, and you have absolutely no control over it. But I always say, if I had one day left in the world, it would be in my combine with my family, because it's one of the most beautiful scenes and smells, and it's pretty near and dear to me. So I love that.
Now, before I go, I wanted to share a quick update for my friends at CAA. Over the past 10 years, CAA has played a huge part in Saskatchewanderer. As the official vehicle sponsor, previous Wanderers have been cruising the prairies safely and in style. I was able to do it for a few weeks, but, well, you know, #staying home. Although I'm not driving the Wanderer car for now, driving doesn't stop during a pandemic. For example, even though school is out, school zones are still in effect. And since we were talking about food supply today, large commercial trucks are still very much busy transporting essentials for us, and CAA has some great tips for safely sharing the highways. And in the event you need help, Roadside Assistance always has your back. They've got a ton of really useful safety tips on their social media, so go follow them and check it out. I also found out that some of their tow truck drivers were working with the Regina Food Bank with pickup and deliveries to help families in need. So although this isn't the year we planned, I want to give a huge thanks to CAA for being part of Saskatchewanderer for so many years. And hopefully the Wanderer car and I shall travel again. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next Friday.